as far as like how that plays into our total standings. So as you can imagine, when you have a lot of teams play against each other, more specifically when you have 18 teams play in one weekend, there's going to be some changes in rankings.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the top two teams didn't see any changes. Grand Valley State still maintaining their number 1 spot.
Yep.
Towson maintaining their number 2 spot.
Yep.
However, we do have a new number 3. Ohio University was able to jump JMU. That was thanks in part to their 2 wins at the Ohio Dodgeball Cup.
Yep.
So that was really good for them. JMU, despite going, I believe it was 2-1, or maybe it was 3-1.
It was 3-1.
Despite going 3-1, the points that were gained from Ohio University out-edged what JMU gained. So they fall a little bit. Michigan State was able to move up in the rankings despite not playing, and that was in part because of Miami's loss to Ohio State University, which hurt them.
Yep.
So Miami was number 6. Number 7, Central Michigan University.
Nothing happened.
Yeah, they didn't play this past weekend, and they didn't move anywhere as far as overall rank goes. After that, a new number 8 in Ohio State University. Like I mentioned, they got the upset win over Miami. They also beat Cincinnati, which gave them enough points to jump our number 9 team, VCU. VCU going 2-2 and gain points. However, despite that, Ohio State was able to gain a little bit more. So they've got like 2/10 edge now over VCU in that 8-9 spot. If those two play at nationals, it's going to be a really good game, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
Bowling Green moves up to number 10. Cleveland State is our biggest jump. They move up from number 20 up to number 11 in the standings. And that kind of showed like 2 things for me. One, obviously being able to get those big wins gave them like a huge point jump because they beat opponents that were close to them as far as like ranking goes. But also it just goes to show how tight that gap is between, teams that might be on the fringe of the top 16 to even up to like the number 10 spot. So that was really huge for Cleveland State's program there.
Yeah.
Saginaw Valley moves up from 13 to 12. And the reason that you saw part of the reason you saw a lot of upward movement from those guys was because of Maryland's drop. Maryland, like we mentioned earlier, went 1-3.
They only had 10 players at the tournament.
They also only had 10 players at the tournament, so unfortunate for them there. But they fell from number 10 to number 13. Still in a decent spot, though. They can just as easily jump back up to number 10 with a couple good wins. So we're not too concerned with them there. Cincinnati continues their upward climb. They jumped up from number 16 to the number 14 spot. After them, Penn State is currently sitting at number 15. They didn't play this past weekend, so no change for them. Wisconsin Platteville, as I mentioned earlier, they took a pretty decent hit from their losses this past weekend. So they fell from number 11 to number 16. And that's really important because at this year's national, that number 16 spot is the last team to make the championship bracket.
Yep.
All teams that are going to be below that will play for a consolation bracket this year. So getting within that top 16 is a really big deal.
Yeah.
After that, you have North Georgia immediately following them. They did not play this weekend, so no changes there. After that, you've got Akron, who, like I said earlier, they went 1-2, so they took a pretty decent hit, and they fell from number 14 to number 20. Again, they're definitely within striking distance of being able to make the top 16. However, not doing themselves any favors at the moment. Western Michigan got a nice little jump. They moved up from number 23 to number 21 right after Akron. Following them, Kentucky, who, like I said earlier, faced a couple losses as a result of only having 9 players. So they fell from 21st to 22nd. Nebraska, they didn't play this past weekend, but they got jumped by Western Michigan by virtue of Western Michigan's good performance. So they're there. UVA, number 24. They didn't have any movement in their overall standing. However, they lost points from the event, so they moved down a little bit as far as just like point total goes.
Right.
After UVA is West Virginia University, who did not play this weekend. After West Virginia, SIUE, who, like I said earlier, is going to be playing this upcoming weekend. So we'll get a chance to see if they get a chance to move their rank up. After them is Marietta, who did not play this weekend. And Marietta moved up by virtue of Kent State losing. Kent State's 0-3 performance unfortunately dropped them from number 27 to 28. After that is the Grand Valley State University B team, who is at 29. After that, Northwestern State University of Louisiana, who has still yet to play this year. After that, DePaul. After that, Georgia Southern. And then Ball State, unfortunately, takes a little bit of a tumble. They dropped from number 29 to number 33 as a result of the 3 losses that they had. And then following them, we have 3 B teams, Michigan State B, Central Michigan B, and then Ohio B as well. So, like I said, that was kind of like a brief overlook of the standings. Again, our biggest gainers overall were Cleveland State, Towson, and Ohio in terms of Gonzalez points. And then as far as like the biggest drops, we saw Wisconsin, Platteville, Kentucky, and Akron kind of take the biggest hit there. Any impressions on the standings from your perspective, Shadid?
I'm really impressed that Cleveland State jumped from 20 into the championship bracket. That is not an easy thing to do. And I know that the standings we post out on Tuesday, so for us would be, well, for everyone else would be tomorrow. But if you kind of just look very quickly, like how many teams from the Ohio region is in the championship bracket, my math might be wrong, but I'm looking at least 5, if not 6.
6, indeed. So right now, the 6 teams that are sitting within the top 16 from the Ohio region would be Ohio University, Miami University, Ohio State University, Bowling Green State University, Cleveland State University, and the University of Cincinnati. And then, pretty much hanging right off the edge there, Akron. They have a lot of potential to be able to get back into that top 16. So don't count them out just yet. Unfortunately, the other Ohio teams kind of sitting more on the outside, Marietta and Kent State. I'd say it's going to be pretty hard for either of those 2 teams to try and climb back in, but stranger things have happened. So we'll have to wait and see. As far as other regional representation goes, Michigan region still has 4 teams in there. You've got Grand Valley, obviously, followed by Michigan State, Central Michigan, and then Saginaw Valley sitting at number 12. As far as the East Coast goes, you've got your 4 expected teams. You got Towson, JMU, VCU, Maryland, and then just still sitting in there right now, Penn State University at number 15. So East Coast has 5 teams, and then the one outside of those 3 regions, Wisconsin Platteville, currently sitting right now at number 16. But if they get some wins over Nebraska and SIUE, then we're talking about them being able to jump, hopefully, back up a little bit. They could probably see themselves jump up to number 14, potentially, definitely jumping over Penn State. So we'll see what happens there.
Another thing about Wisconsin is they're going to be playing this upcoming weekend. They're going to be playing at the War. They also could be playing at the Bowling Green tournament as well. So they still got opportunities to climb up the ranking. Yeah,
they've got a lot of dodgeball left in them. I think the biggest thing that you'll notice as far as the ratings themselves go right now, you definitely have like your various tiers sort of separating out right now. Grand Valley, realistically, in a tier of their own. With 56 points. I mean, it's going to be hard for any team to try and catch up to them and take that number 1 spot, that number 1 seed going into nationals. Number 2 right now, Towson. They're also kind of in a space of their own at the moment. They've got a 2.8 point lead over the next closest, which is Ohio University. And the thing is, like Towson, they are playing next weekend as well, and they'll get a chance to play against the usual teams and potentially, continue to move up. So they'll play against, most likely JMU, VCU, maybe Maryland or West Virginia. And we'll get a chance to talk with Colin about that.
And
see what he's thinking.
we might get some groundbreaking news in terms of the schedule. We might.
Might.
Hard maybe, though.
Yeah. The next, what I would say, kind of tier is your 3 through 6 tier. So Ohio University to Miami University, those two teams are all separated by exactly 2 points, roughly. And you can see a lot of movement in that group. You're likely to see a lot of movement in that group when it comes to Saturday at Nationals, much less some of the events that we have coming up.
Yeah, it's a very fluent situation. Very fluent.
Yeah.
Crazy how Ohio is currently like at number 3 right now, and they only got like 1 loss to their resume.
Mm-hmm. After that, I would say like your next group would be the 7 through 9 teams. So Central Michigan, Ohio State, and VCU. Ohio State and VCU pretty much separated by less than 0.2 of a point. And then Central Michigan, they're a little over a point away from Miami, and then they're a little over a point away from Ohio State. So you could almost argue they're a little bit in their own separate bubble as well, but I would say close enough as well to kind of group those two teams together. And then when you go from the 10 to 16 tier, you're talking about a 1.5 point difference between all of those teams. And so that's a really, like I said, like a really big dynamic as far as going into the Saturday at Nationals and who you decide to play because, frankly, if you want to schedule cupcake teams, like, that's your prerogative and you can do what you want to do. But with that being said, you might run into a situation where you're not getting enough points. And as a result of not being able to get enough points, you're not going to be able to sustain your position if you end up taking a bad loss or whatever the case may be. So, the best interest of some of those teams is going to be try and play against teams that are, within your same, rating range and, try and sneak some points away. Yeah. So, like I said, kind of some interesting tiers developing there. But we'll see, what ends up happening.